A new year means a new slate of films, and this year is shaping up to be a very busy one at that. In this video, I am going to look at some of the upcoming films that will either flop or find success. Not only will I be covering upcoming comic book films released this year, but most genre films. These are in no particular order, but let's start with what I think will flop this year. The numbers that I predict at the end of each one are final numbers for the film and what I think they'll probably do worldwide, and remember they're just that, predictions. They're not something you can actually hold me to. The third installment in the XXX series sees Vin Diesel's character Xander Cage return from the dead to partake in more extreme sports-centric hijinks for the US government. Even with the star power of Vin Diesel, which has helped the Fast and Furious franchise explode into $1 billion franchise, I think the third entry in the XXX series will be left in the gutter to die. Had it been made 6 or 7 years ago, I think it might have stood a chance, but the last film in the series, which didn't even star Vin Diesel, was made in 2005, 12 years ago. It's also being released in what Red Letter Media lovingly calls "Fuck you, it's January month."
Fuck you, it's January!
Where all the studios dump all the shit they don't think is going to make a lot of money to make room for the summer releases in June, July and August. I predict it will make around 200 to 250 million, which is what the last one Vin Diesel starred in made, but it could surprise everyone and become a super hit and reinvigorate the franchise. You never know. The Resident Evil movies are pure cancer. Don't let anyone else tell you differently. Completely neglecting the story and topics of the video game in favour of director Paul W.S. Anderson giving his wife the job of shooting badly CGI'd monsters in a Fox Mad Max setting. The last one made barely $240 million worldwide, and for some reason garnered a sequel in this one, The Final Chapter. So I can definitely see this final chapter getting around that, maybe even less. The series has been failing since the third one, so hopefully this will be the final nail in its coffin. Monster Trucks, the film that died before it even finished pre-production. Paramount even listed this film as a loss in 2016. I've only seen one trailer for it and it looks horrendous. I wouldn't be surprised if it's in cinemas for maybe a month or two and then is quietly released on home video or Netflix or something. It's opened in a few foreign markets like UK and France already and has barely made $10 million at that, so I can't see it even breaking 50 or 75 million. After owning the series rights on and off for the past 2 decades, Saban decided to make a big screen adaptation of their hit 90s superhero sci-fi show Power Rangers. Except they decided to cut everything that made that show fun and enjoyable, opting to take the Power Rangers the Chronicle route, except this time dress them all in primary coloured armour. Fans have already voiced their displeasure, so I can't see this film succeeding very well, and it might even turn out like that horrendous Max Steel movie that was released not too long ago. I think this film would maybe make 100 to 200 million. Next up we have Valerian and the City of 1,000 Planets. This is a movie I really want to see succeed, mainly because it might mean the resurgence of weird, big budget sci-fi films. It's also made by Luc Besson, the Frenchman responsible for The Fifth Element, a fantastically weird sci-fi film from the 90s that if you haven't seen, I suggest you stop this video right now and go and watch. It's absolutely fantastic. But alas, people don't really gel with these type of films, so I don't think it'll get anywhere near 800 million. I think it might make about 100 to 220 million. And the last film in my flop list is Ghost in the Shell. Taking a much beloved anime and creating a live action film of it is a great way to piss off fans of said anime, which is what happened when Ghost in the Shell was announced as a live action film with Scarlett Johansson playing the Major. After seeing the trailer and some of the care director Rupert Sanders has put into recreating aspects of the anime, I'm personally really excited for it, and I know a lot of other people are. But like with VALERIAN, I think it won't gel really well with the general audiences, and I predict it'll probably make about the same 100 to 220 million. Next, I will look at the films that could slide either way, depending on critic and audience responses. From Sony Pictures, the studio that definitely is in touch with the kids these days, thought it would be a good idea to make a movie about messenger icons. Thus, the Emoji movie was born. How they thought this was a good idea, I'll have no idea. The teaser released for the film is already a sign that the makers of the studio are completely out of touch with their target audience and are just going for the usual poop joke audience, which will laugh at anything, which is usually just little kids taken to the theatre by their parents. Like Resident Evil, I couldn't really place the opening since it could definitely get the kid audience and the family audience like those god-awful Minions movies are getting, and it could become, you know, $1 billion franchise or something. But I still think it'll probably make around 250 million maybe. It all depends on like what it exactly is. Next we have John Wick Chapter 2. John Wick, the film that I think surprised a lot of people back in 2014, managed to finally get a sequel. Now back with a bigger budget and the same team, the film could definitely slide either way, especially with a bigger budget. They could just throw money at all their problems and, you know, oh, we'll fix it in post, do all that sort of stuff. Since with a smaller budget like they had on the first film, which was only $20 million, they had to get creative with what they could do and everything. The first one actually did $90 million on its $20 million budget, so I think for a sequel, and if the trailer is any indication of how the sequel is going to be, I think it's going to be a really good film and maybe make 150, maybe even 250 million, which would be great for a film that started out as kind of like a experimental action film sort of thing. Next we have Wonder Woman, and thanks to WB bungling the first 3 entries in the DCEU, people are very apprehensive when it comes to their films now, since I've seen people all over the internet and in real life talking about how they're cautiously optimistic for this next film, mainly because it's not directed by a dude bro who only cares about Jesus imagery. The trailer did give me some hope it will be good, and I've learned never to trust WB's DC film trailers. There's also the fact that the director, Patty Jenkins, hasn't made a film in over 10 years and only been doing little things on TV. Here's hoping the lack of Zack Snyder in the director's chair and maybe less studio interference will be enough for WB to conquer the bad wave of films they have been having. These DCEU films are kinda hard to predict for, since they always have first good weekends that really pump up the numbers, so you think, oh, it's going to make 500 million really quickly, but then they drop off in the weeks following, so it's really hard to place it, but I think it might do very well. Next we have WB's other DC film this year, Justice League, and much the same as Wonder Woman, this film is being viewed very cautiously by fans. Maybe more so since it's a Zack Snyder film, a director they somehow, for some reason, decided to get back instead of delaying the film a few months and letting another director come in. Especially after they let him keep his job after fucking up a guaranteed $1 billion movie in Batman v Superman. There is no doubt that it will make money to begin with since it's the Justice League, but like Batman v Superman, the critics' reviews will make or break this film, and it might end up the same as Batman v Superman, a good first weekend and then plummet. Next we have The Dark Tower, again another film I am eagerly awaiting since I'm a fan of the source material and of Stephen King. Although with dates being pushed back and a rather long and troubled production could mean the film has been taken over by the studios and is being meddled with. And you know, once all the meddling starts, 99% of the time it turns out to be a shit show. So I predict around 90 to 150 million. Next up we have Kong Skull Island, and this is technically the second film in Legendary's Kaiju cinematic universe, the first film being 2014's Godzilla. Kong Skull Island looks pretty awesome and the story is rather simple, and kaiju and movie monster films usually do pretty mildly at the box office. Godzilla actually made about 500 million worldwide, so I could see Kong making about that. Maybe it could go lower, it all depends on the tone and reception of the film critic-wise. Sticking with cinematic universes, we have The Mummy, and at first this was meant to be the second film in Universal's Monsters universe, with Dracula Untold as the first. But when that film failed to perform, it became the first film in the series to be booted off the list, thus making The Mummy the first film. Tom Cruise's star power might be enough to push the film to success. Adding in Russell Crowe as Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, I could see it being a great success, but I could also see it fail like how Dracula did thanks to a weak script. Untold made slightly over 215 million, so The Mummy could definitely place anywhere between 100 to 250 million. Next we have Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Men Tell No Tales. Pretty much in production since the last Pirates film in 2011, the new installment was slapped with a massive $320 million budget. As I said before, the last film was in 2011 and I think people are really getting sick of Johnny Depp's shenanigans as Captain Jack Sparrow, and of course there's that long 6-year gap between the films. Then again, it could surprise anyone and be a really fun and great adventure film. Next we have Thor Ragnarok. Lots of people are really anticipating the third installment in the Thor films for a number of reasons. 1, Hulk is in it. 2, Loki is back in the MCU as a villain. And 3, Doctor Strange is going to make an appearance. And 4, breakout director Taika Waititi is directing. With Marvel stepping up its game on its road to the Infinity War, Thor 3 could be a huge part of the MCU and could end up being another surprising success for Marvel Studios, especially with Taika Waititi's unique vision for directing. And lastly, the surefire hits of 2017. Starring in his first movie in the MCU, with Iron Man making an extended cameo, Spider-Man Homecoming is a guaranteed hit. It is bound to make a shitload of money for every party involved, possibly even cracking the $1 billion roof. Again, another film that is a surefire hit, with the same director and cast as the first, with a few extras along for the ride. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is the sequel to the surprise hit of 2014. It will definitely make over the first one's 770 million and definitely has a chance to break 1 billion. I don't know what it is about the schlock that Michael Bay pumps out, but it makes a fucking boatload of money, even more so now with the emerging Chinese film market who just eat his shit up. It will make over 800 million easily. The last one made 1.1 billion, and with the inclusion of the twist that Optimus Prime is now quote unquote bad, as we've seen in the trailers, it will probably intrigue people more and maybe even push it up to 1.2 billion. Next we have Star Wars Episode 8, and I don't really need to explain why I think this movie's gonna make a lot of money. It's a surefire $1 billion hit because it's fucking Star Wars. It'll easily make over $1 billion. Like the Transformers films, there's something about big budget schlock that people absolutely love. Combine that with Vin Diesel and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson using high-end production cars as melee weapons, and it is a guaranteed billion-dollar hit. Next up is Cars 3, and this is a rather strange addition to the list, especially with the rather grim first teaser that proclaimed that everything will change from here on out. It's definitely got a lot of people interested, or at least intrigued in what it is, and I think that'll be enough to push it over the edge. And these Cars films make quite a bit of money to begin with the last one actually making over $500 million, and of course it being a Pixar movie, people will definitely flock to it, so I can see it easily making $600 to $800 million. Thanks for watching. Remember to leave a comment in the comment section below, or follow the links on screen now to other reviews or topic videos. If you haven't already, remember to subscribe for more weekly reviews and videos.
Fuck you, it's January!